Elizabeth Audencream.
This One's Wife, Duckling Hell. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Valuable viewers, cast your minds back to Easter time. No, not to the amount of chocolates that you consumed. Instead, do you recall when this one's wife suddenly appeared from the undergrowth? Yes? There she was, clad in a white dress, barefooted, and just happened to be lurking in the undergrowth when two things happened. A mother duck and her ducklings were seen waddling across the road, and somebody was around to happen to capture it all. And we saw the preposterous reactions of this one's wife as she behaved as if she had never witnessed ducks or ducklings before. It was wholly pathetic and resulted in many people immediately, and to my mind quite properly, forming the conclusion that this was staged. After all, how could it be that the ducks appeared and this one's wife suddenly appeared, and it also happened to be caught on camera? Was it the case that she had been stalking these ducks? After all, that kind of behaviour is something for which she is known by virtue of her lack of emotional empathy, sense of entitlement, poor boundary recognition and lack of accountability, where she needs to assert control. So might she have been pursuing Mother Duck and the ducklings who were trying to get away from her until there was such a point as she yelled, "Now! Now! Take the photographs now!" And she was snapped in an attempt to make it look like it was a charming Easter scene that just happened spontaneously. Only the idiots were fooled by this. Only those of flabby intellectualism were taken in by yet another staged act of this one's wife. But there's more to this tale. Yes, months later, who is it other than Oprah? Yes, neighbour Oprah Winfrey sheds further light on the duck incident, and it doesn't portray the Sussexes in a particularly good light. Sonia Horan, writing for the Daily Mail, explains that Oprah Winfrey took a gentle jab at her Monty Shitshow neighbours, Prince Harry and this one's wife, for their last name. Now, I'm not particularly interested in this purported jab, which to my mind doesn't really seem like one, and I think there's a bit of a stretch going on the part of the Daily Mail. But it's more the dealing of the backyard problem. No, we're not talking about the fact that a black mamba vibrator remained wedged in the derriere of Prince Harry, but in relation to the ducklings. The TV mogul appeared on Kelly Ripa's Let's Talk Off Camera podcast, and Kelly asked Oprah if she would enjoy receiving baby chicks, as a gift. The veteran talk show said no, and added, "I'd run them straight over to the Sussexes," while mispronouncing the name by adding extra X's at the end. Now, that's interesting that she mispronounces their name, which tells me that she's not accustomed to saying it, which tells me that she very rarely talks about them or mentions them. But as I explained, it's not about the name that I'm interested, it's what she has to tell us about the duck tale. She explained that she helped the couple deal with a surprising backyard problem. Oprah lives close to this one's wife and Harry in California, and she recalled rushing to their aid over the Easter weekend when they discovered ducklings in their backyard, but had nowhere suitable to settle them. I get a call from Harry, Prince Harry, on Easter Saturday, and he says, "Sorry to bother you, O." What is it with this lot of initials? "But we have a duck problem here," she said, imitating a British accent. A duck had come into their yard and laid their eggs and had these chicks. And he said, "Our pond is a stream. We don't have a pond. So can we bring the ducks over to your pond?" Oprah agreed, but asked Harry to wait because her best friend Gayle King's grandchildren were coming to visit and would like to see the spectacle. But Harry insisted he needed to move the creatures immediately. She continued, I said, Wait until I can get the kids to come down to the pond so they can see you put the ducks in the pond. And he goes, no, we're coming right away. We're coming over. But the cute scene turned to chaos when the mama duck fled and the trio had to chase her, providing the funniest thing Oprah had ever seen. She said, as he opens the door, the mama duck flies out and he's got all the baby ducks in a box. We're chasing the mama duck, who is in the front yard and has flown to the other side. We've got her ducks. Harry's running after. This one's wife gets out. She's running after, chasing the mum. Surprised the duck didn't keel over with a heart attack, being chased by that harridan, and trying to get her to come back to her ducks. And for like half an hour, we're running around with the ducks in a box. We have video. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Kelly joked the duck had been very shrewd in choosing a nesting spot. She laughed. The ducks also hit the jackpot. They're like, wait a minute, we show up at Prince Harry's house, and now we're at Oprah's. Excuse me, that duck knew what it was doing when it laid its eggs. Accordingly, what we all saw as the staged interaction between this one's wife and the ducks turned into something that should have been accompanied by the theme tune to Benny Hill, Yakety Sax, look it up if you don't know what I mean, as purportedly the three of them ran around a yard chasing after a mother duck. Now, what's interesting about this is that presumably these ducks had been around for a reasonable period of time, but it was just so happens that on Easter weekend that not only does this one's wife have a photograph with them, but then the Sussexes decide to get rid of them. Now, isn't this one's wife meant to be empathic and an animal lover? After all, her reaction that she portrayed when she saw this ducks was like, oh, how lovely. And yet the ducks are packed off. She'll argue that it was for their benefit because they only had a stream rather than a pond. But aren't we dealing with a supposedly wealthy couple? Surely they would have been able to either create a temporary pond in a matter of moments. For instance, don't the kids have a paddling pool that you could have used as a temporary measure? Or that you could have gone and purchased a pool of a decent size that you could then have put there temporarily whilst you had a pond dug. I'm fairly certain that a contractor would have been able to create a pond in 24 hours, even less, that the ducks could have had. Surely the contacts of this one's wife and Harry and their financial firepower would have allowed them to do that. Or wouldn't your first thought have been, look, we found these ducks, but there's nowhere for them to stay. Why don't we ring an animal wildlife outfit and ask their advice or ask them to come and collect them? That would be the normal response, wouldn't it? If you had an animal that you couldn't care for and you thought either was in distress or just needed a home to go to, you would either try and create a home if you had the ability to do so, or you would involve the relevant experts, an appropriate wildlife organisation or charity, surely. Your immediate thought wouldn't be, I know, let's ring Oprah and she can have the ducks. To my mind, what's really happened here is that those ducks didn't turn up on the land naturally. I think that this one's wife and Harry got those ducks for the purposes of having this one's wife go, oh, aren't they wonderful? So she could then post a video and post some pictures on her Instagram to coincide with Easter, and then the ducks had served their purpose, and accordingly, rather than be turned into crispy fried duck with some hoisin sauce, they decided to jettison them and concluded that the most appropriate thing to do would be not keep them and build a pond for them, which they'd easily be able to do. They've got the land, they've got the money, they've got the contacts that could do that, or to contact a wildlife charity to say, oh, we just happen to have found these ducks on our land, but we don't know how to care for them. Can somebody come and collect them? No, let's make another story by taking them over to Oprah. You might wonder, did that actually happen? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. And if it did, it seems to me a rather strange and staged reaction on the part of the Sussexes, as there are much easier things that they ought to have done in relation to those ducks. Given the nature of this one's wife and her necessity of performance, which is utilised for the assertion of control and the drawing of fuel, I believe that she either came across these ducks and then staged the photo, or even organised for the ducks to be brought there so she could stage a photo. And then when they started shitting everywhere, because ducks invariably do create a lot of faeces, they'd served their purpose and it was time to get rid of them. And therefore, rather than involve a wildlife charity, it was a case of, right, okay, let's just ditch them. But we'll ditch them with Oprah. We'll stick them in a pond. Let's get Oprah to do our dirty work. It's also the fact that the way that they dealt with these animals could have caused the mother duck to flee, scaring her to such an extent that she abandoned her ducklings, which then would have meant, most likely, they would have died. But of course, dim-witted Harry and self-absorbed this one's wife don't think about things like that because they're clowns. Ultimately, yet more performative nonsense involving this one's wife, and a further demonstration of the sense of entitlement and lack of emotional empathy for which she is renowned. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.